of the session will be drawing from Azad's on-ground experience, Azad Foundation's on-ground experience of working with women and girls from marginalized communities and how patriarchal norms limit their access to digital technology and digital skills. And it will also be talking about a study by the Non-Traditional Livelihoods Network, which highlights the opportunities and gaps in the education policy in the Indian context, and it also highlights certain recommendations for gender transformative education through policy changes. So we are very thankful to all of you who have joined us in person and also virtually, and we look forward to collectively learning from each other in this session. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So when the ambassador arrives, we'll ask him to, make some remarks, but we will move on first on the women's economic empowerment and the digital divide. And we have three speakers here coming from different parts of the region. Online, we have Ms. Mariam Shakila, who is the Vice President of the South Asia's Women Development Forum, and she's also the head of the Maldives chapter. So we have the Deputy Ambassador of Maldives also in the room as well. And yes, she is, although she's from the Maldives, she is currently in Bandung Airport. So yes, I hope the connectivity is there. Shakila, are you online?
Yes, I'm online, but every now and then there's noise, background noise coming up. So
Ladies from South Asia and what they're going through with the digital era.
I couldn't hear you.
No, you have the floor.
All right, okay. So in relation to the Maldives, for example, and then also the findings that we had, socio-cultural barriers stand as one of the barriers for women's access. So societal beliefs and norms are also restricting women's access to education and employment opportunities, not necessarily in the Malay, but then when it comes to island communities, that is a problem now. And then so it also diminishes their confidence and ability to engage in the digital economy, and also the educational disparities. Although Maldives has even our constitution has no discrimination towards equal education for men and women. What happens is in the island communities, in the far-off islands, there recently there are barriers coming due to the way people are brainwashing the girls, and then also like barriers to education in terms of, and then even also for get educated towards a STEM education, for example, and then when it comes to that one, then it limits their skills in digital related areas. But then having said that, Maldives, almost everybody, I think everybody has a handphone, everybody has access to internet, everybody has the skills in relation to that. But then when it comes to the specific techniques of using this technology that they have is limited. They may know how to send, like, for example, access to social media. They may know how to do a bit of WhatsApp, etc., etc. But when it comes to the actual skills that are required to, for example, do digital economy, there are limitations. Then also the limited financial resources. I'm also not only talking about the Maldives, I'm also talking in general about the South Asia itself, because I'm also representing South Asia Women's Development Forum. So in comparison to the rest of the Asia Pacific countries, I think Maldives is far better in terms of access to technology, access to internet, and then also the knowledge that girls have in using the technology. But talking of Southeast Asia or South Asia, so limited financial resources also frequently come as obstacles. Just one second, I need to
There's an airport announcement, so one second. Live. Yeah, I'll ask her to put her camera on so we can see her face too. The long announcement.
Yeah, sorry about that. It was
Go ahead, no. And if you can turn the
you know,
camera on without compromising the connection, we'd love to see your face too.
pardon?
Carry on.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Please continue. If you can put your camera on.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
This is Mariam.
Yes. Yes, okay. No, I just put it off because because there was the airport announcement coming through. Yeah, anyway, so and also there's a workplace discrimination in many industries. Women are still facing discrimination, which can limit their career growth in technology driven fields or entrepreneurship, for example, and also lack of role models and a dearth of female role models in technology and leadership positions are also actually becoming as a hindrance to young women from pursuing careers in these fields. And also safety and security risks are becoming quite prominent nowadays. So online harassment and safety concerns are also discouraging women from participating fully in the digital space. And parents are also, in many cases, parents are also discouraging girls from using this technology. And so fear of cyberbullying and privacy violations are also significant issues. And there are also, what we found was there are also regulatory barriers. In some regions, laws and regulations are also hindering women's ability to engage in online businesses or restrict their access to vital resources and work-life balance expectations as well. So traditional gender roles often place the burden of household responsibilities on women, as you know, and which can limit their time and resources for pursuing digital skills or economic opportunities or pursuing education along those lines. And also, there is also another issue that is the insufficient support networks. So women may access to like mentorship, for example, or networks or support systems that are also crucial for professional and entrepreneurial development. And also, in many cases, in many parts of our region, the economic instability, broader economic challenges such as a recession or inflation are also disproportionately affecting women, especially those in vulnerable employment situations or informal sectors mainly. And then also there's a lot of gender bias in technology itself. So many technologies and platforms are developed without giving any consideration whatsoever to the specific needs and experiences of women, leading to products that are less relevant or helpful for women. So addressing these challenges requires coordinated efforts across sectors, across the region, among the countries, individually within their countries, and then also among each other. That includes education, policy making, community support, and also corporate responsibility to create an enabling environment for women's digital economic empowerment. So also what happens is also additionally women often encounter income and financial constraints, for example, that hinders their ability to purchase devices and access to internet services. By the way, I'm not talking about the Maldives. Maldives is better, as I said, once again, I would say, in comparison to a lot of other countries. And then they also face challenges in accessing credit or So sorry about that. The announcement was coming, so I had to put it off. Anyway, they
If
also
you have
face
to wrap
challenges.
up, please. Thanks.
Pardon?
Yeah,
What did
you
you
can
say?
continue, but if you could wrap up as well. Time is
Yeah, they
coming.
also face, yeah. Yeah, so they also face challenges in accessing credit, and these challenges prevent them from starting or growing businesses and also investing in digital skills training. So there are also fewer employment opportunities that require digital skills for these people. So in professional environments, many women face workplace discrimination, which limits their advancement in technology-driven fields or entrepreneurship. So I think for the time being, I would stop over up to that, and then later on address any other questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shakila. Though you've shared so much, I'm not even going to attempt to summarize it, but it does show the, the connecting dots of so many barriers, cutting across. Well, entry point was economy, but it actually goes into education, etc. So I'm going to continue here. I'd like to invite Dr. Soipet Rezanong, who is the vice chair of the Federation of Business and Professional Women of Thailand chapter, with a very interesting experience and career as well. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Yes, as a businesswoman here in Thailand and also in across the international markets, I do a lot of important export of luxury goods or luxury products from Europe to Asia for 30 years. So, well, it is, I would like to talk for you to see the picture, how digital abruption or changing affects me and my company. I think that you can see the samples much clearer. From having 4 secretaries, now I have only 1. And to replace the 3 secretaries, I have to do everything on my mobile phones or my iPad, so that you can see that I use much less resources for human resource, because I can do it all by myself. But that means I have no limits of working hours. I have to work 24 hours. Sometimes when I wake up during the night, I have to read my email. I have to read all my lines, WhatsApp, because to see also what is happening, or whether I have orders, whether there is some complaints. So that is not working 8 hours anymore, because customer can reach me at any time. I don't see that is a limitation for gender, for a digital gender divide at all, as long as you can have budget to pay for your internet. And as long as the country provides you a very good perception, whatever. But what disturbs me is that the advancement of the technology is going very fast. I don't know anymore what type of telephone I should use, what type of gadgets or camera or whatever I should use, because as a woman, I'm not good in any equipment, even a car. I buy a car because it's beautiful, because I don't know the horsepower. I don't know what it is, and for me to know about the cameras and all these things, I have no ideas. So I need a person to tell me and to give me, okay, this is good for you, this is good for your business, it should be, and I cannot buy it because it's beautiful as a car, because it has to serve me to be able to present my products online or whatever. This eruption affects my business very rapidly during these past 10 years. I wish to have business online, but because my business is in watches and luxury goods, it's very difficult. People who buy luxury goods, they would like to touch it, they would like to taste it, and so they cannot just buy it as you buy normal household things online, because people would like to taste, like to see. So from having 65 outlets in Thailand, now I have only 2. I wish to, because also of COVID, but because I would like also to make it online. For 10 years I'm trying, still not yet successful. because of all this development, which is very fast in technology. I don't know anymore what to do, what to use. Some of my friends in the federation, they have to close their business, especially the one in printing, in printing companies, printing business. They all close their companies. And I think even in Europe right now, if you go to some of the remote villages, like in Switzerland, you see the banner campaigning to shop and to help local business, retail business. They have a banner already because they said that if only people shop online, they will kill the local business. They will be out of business. And now you can see that all in department stores, even the past Chinese New Year's, it was so empty. It used to be full pack. But I don't think that their sales turnover is going down because I can read their reports. It means that their business shift from the department stores to be online. And the online business, if you can read, it's increasing tremendously. So all these things, I think it doesn't limit by gender, but it limits you by whether you can adapt yourself or you have to die out. That is very, I think it's more severe, effects of digital transformation. And I try to communicate with the young ones, meaning we have a young entrepreneur in our federation. The young entrepreneurs start from 18 years old till 35. And we have the middle age, 35 to 60, the group that we are making business, making money, and the group that is more than 60 years old. We have 60 to even 90 years old members in our federation. And so the 60 to 90, they are now like outdated, so there is a lot of digital literacy or illiteracy. We cannot talk with the young ones, and the young ones think that we are too slow. And they can make, how come, I think that at this point of time, I would love more to see the dialogues between the young ones and the elderly ones in business, to empower the economic together, hands in hands. I would love to see that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, for sharing that personal experience. And I think new perspectives for me too, learning about this. Of course, you intuitively kind of understand. I'm also in the older generation, so this intergenerational divide. But yeah, how to kind of balance it and bring people together so that, the economic, business opportunities don't just swerve from one to another. Everybody needs to be in this, right? So thank you very much for sharing that. So now I'm going to invite one of our regional institutions, the Asia Pacific Center for ICT. Actually, the head, Keon, is also here too. But we have here as a panelist, Mr. Thanatat Puttaswan, who's been working with this center and is also doing quite a bit of training also in South Asia too, but also in Thailand. So let me ask him for his perspectives, maybe responding also to some of the issues that have already come up.
Thank you very much. Thank you, APCICT, for having me here and to share with you some of the perspectives that I have experienced. I'm an economist. I'm not an ICT or digital technology person. My approach to digital technology and digital economy is from the economic development and social development perspective. Having heard the two speakers, let me take a step back and put this into context a little bit. Various studies by international organizations, the UNSCAP, World Bank, ADB, you name it, and private sector consultants also, the McKinseys and Ernst & Young of the world. The study shows that by empowering gender equality and provide opportunities to women, countries stand to gain economic and social development, in upward of single digit, sometimes double digit contribution to GDPs and social indicators. Secondly, by not doing so, especially in Asia Pacific, whether it be South Asia or Southeast Asia or Central Asia, you stand to lose the opportunity. Okay, I'm not going to go into details on what you will lose, but those of you who are interested can follow up on it. But give me some keywords. Empowerment is one, which is vast and very different from countries to countries and social context to social context. Another is opportunities and challenges. I think you heard from the two speakers what are the challenges women are facing. Let me simplify it a little bit. To me, challenges include access and affordability. In certain countries, access to the internet technology is not readily available for women and for men, for that matter, especially in smaller countries where geographical terrains and opportunities are limited, because digital economy and digital businesses also require digital performance. So in some of the countries, that's limited. Secondly, the affordability. Internet cost is high. Asia and Pacific is also a mobile society. We use mobile, and you access digital technologies and digital markets through your mobile. And mobile devices are expensive, even secondhand ones. Thirdly, access to finance, especially for the micro SMEs, the cottage industries, and the SMEs of the world. We're not talking about the SMEs or the corporate that are listed in the stock markets. They have their helps, they have their supports. But we're talking about women in rural areas or semi-rural areas who cannot afford to access. Fourthly, after you access, some of the countries' contents are difficult. They're not English speakers, whereas a lot of the contents are in English. So local contents and local languages have to be developed. Last but not least, I believe is the most important, is the limited digital skills provided to women, especially in Southeast Asia and South Asia, where women are expected to take care of their homes, take care of their families, their children. Opportunities are limited. So trainings and skills are limited. And I'm very happy to hear that we'll be talking about GTE here, because to me, gender transformative education also means formal education and also professional education or business education. So to me, what we are talking about here comes down to skills development for digital skills. And as I sit here, as Mikiko said, I'm part of APCICT. APCICT is a training institute under SCAP, part of the UN. They provide training to the various people. You can look them up on the internet, but in our context for women, they have a so-called Women DX, Transformative Education, that they provide to practitioners, also to government, to provide the basic to more intermediate and more advanced, and also talking about policymakers, how they can help promote women, digital entrepreneurs in various countries. So let me stop there and then we can discuss from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kun Thanatat. Good to pull that together, and it actually transitions into the education. So I'm going to pass over in a moment, but I'd like to welcome His Excellency Mr. Fayaz Murshid Kazi, the ambassador of Bangladesh here in Bangkok, and also he's the permanent representative to SCAP for Bangladesh as well. And we're really happy to have you here. Going to ask him to give some remarks. I mean, welcome or whatever it is. No, you go first, and then we go to the, yes.
Yeah, let's keep the flow. maybe.
You want to afterwards?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You will give it afterwards. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So then over to the Azad Foundation, please.
Thank you, Mikiko, and thank you everyone for bringing in those different types of perspectives. Today, we're going to be actually talking about, like it was said in the earlier by the earlier speaker also, that how we can move towards the gender transformative education, considering the fact that we all know that there is a gender digital divide, and we've heard about the challenges. We would just start by looking at some of the context which we already perhaps know a bit about. A lot of it we know that the need why we require to close this gap is because it was also spoken about by the earlier speaker that, you know, a lot of the jobs, a lot of the aspects that we are today talking about is converting into digital aspects. So that is something that is a reality, and that's something that we cannot be escaping from. And also the fact that, you know, despite all this, access remains an issue is something that we have heard. Morning also we heard about the mobile ownership, and it's really good to see that maybe there is some gap that is getting reduced over there. More and more women maybe are now getting access and ownership to mobile. We will be showing in a bit that, you know, how that access is also limited access. What happens even when you have the access, and what is it that you're not able to actually use despite all the access that you've been given to. Even when you have an instrument, what is that issue that emerges? As has been rightly put, access doesn't just mean having a device, but you also need electricity, you need resources. Many parts of the world, and we know the world where we're living in also, electricity and other kinds of resources are very, very limited. And this limited resource, what happens is that women definitely come in the last category when it comes to using these wherever there are limits to resources. We have policies. There are some new policies that are emerging where these issues are getting addressed. However, given the systemic barriers that we're talking about, we'll just move on to the next slide to show you that this is the kind of challenge that we are witnessing. We know that early marriage, issues related to underrepresentation, leadership, digital violence, all these also exist and persist. So considering that this is what the challenges are, which are very systemic, very structural, how is it that we can build a strategy? So I'm then going to be talking therefore about in Azad Foundation, considering that this is the context that we are in, these are the challenges where we face, and as an organization, what is the kind of strategy that we have built? Our organization primarily works with marginalized women. We bring livelihood opportunities for them. And but there are like specific strategies that we have now adapted considering our work that we've been doing for so many years. Of course, one of the things is access, that we give access to the device, access to different kinds of, you know, skills that women need for employment and also to use these. However, it's not just enough. Our experience has shown us that the skill itself is just not enough. You need to have control over those skills and also continuous practice of those skills. These are the four things that we think really is essential when it comes to, so therefore when you give women a skill, and I'll show you from two different programs that we are doing. One is when we are working with adolescent women, we are linking them up to STEM education, linking them up with, you know, different kinds of ITI programs. But we realize that just linking them up with these programs is not being very fruitful. What is really required is that also modules that are needed on, say, for example, gender, patriarchy, aspects connected to how they're using this device. How much of this device is getting used for what purpose? What is it that they are using it for? And whether the STEM education, when they have access to, are they also getting connected to, say, for example, different kinds of job opportunities connected to that? And mentorship, because that becomes a very, very important aspect. It is not just enough, therefore, we've seen, to link them up to this. Giving only scholarship does not work, but how is it that you're going to mentor them? All that handholding becomes very important when it comes to finally these girls using these skills in a way that they have control over these skills. Similarly, the other important program that I really want to talk about is Women with Wheels program, where we give driving skills to women and also employ them in the transport sector. Now, how is it connected to the digital aspect? Is that in today's world, we know for navigation, everybody needs to use the smartphone. So therefore, like I said, all these are connected, and in transformative education, it's very, very important that we actually establish these connections, the connection between driving skill with the digital skill. And how is it that you're going to then, since most women who come to us for training don't have firstly access to a device, we have to first give them that access, not just that, help them with navigation, because they've never even, they don't know how to navigate this. So again and again giving them the practice of driving with navigation. Along with that, also we know that in today's world, most job markets in transport sector, it's primarily the e-commerce. So how do women then use these apps? So all these connections need to be established even before they are getting employed anywhere. And that's like a process that happens. Along with that, you also need to help her because she's doing a lot of unpaid care work at home. How does she navigate her situation at home? So that linkage, to give her also make her understand that, there's patriarchy, aspects related to gender. So these modules also go parallelly after the driving training. So what we're trying to suggest over here is that this strategy, it becomes very important to make these different kinds of linkages to have a holistic transformative education, and then only that kind of an impact can be seen on ground. And we see that, in our own experience also, even when women have these kind of skills, often what is happening with, say, for example, most of the adolescent girls, they have the access, but it's a controlled access. It's called sabka phone. That means you don't have a singular phone in your hand. It is the whole family's phone. I recently met some of the adolescent girls and who are a part of our program, and they said that, this phone is given to them when they're stepping out of phone. So that, of course, if they want something, if they want to communicate, but when they're at home, this phone is used by everybody. So it's not that when we are saying it's access, we have to be very specific. What is the kind of access we are talking about? Even at home when it is used. So since it's sabka phone, everybody's phone, there are certain things that you can never therefore see. You suppose you want information related to sexual and reproductive health. She's not going to be able to see that because she knows that, there are other people, other male members, and most often this access is through a family member's phone who is a male member. So these issues which are central, which are real issues, these are the kinds of ground realities which we are seeing, which are connected, and how shared ownership often gets related to surveillance for women. Similar kinds of experience we also see on ground with Women with Wheels program. There's so much of, say, for example, trigger for violence, which is related to digital access as well. Whom are you talking to? How much are you talking to? So, all this control mechanism that starts from home itself and also on the road for them, because it's not so common to see women driving. So, that's also a navigation. How do they navigate those situations? So that kind of handholding and mentorship is continuously required for them to even see how are they going to come out of these surveillance and control mechanisms. So that is why we are talking about the skill. Only skill is not enough, and therefore to have a kind of training process that looks at different aspects. And when we do that, this is the kind of impact that we are seeing on ground. These women who were earlier, they were mostly in informal sector. They had the driving skill, they learned it through this transformative education, and now their, of course, incomes have increased to 200%. most significantly, it's the mobility. Because earlier they were not mobile. That mobility, the agency that comes with that mobility. So all that is definitely a stronger impact on ground that we are seeing now. And also in the case of 90% of the adolescent girls, for example, they are now able to negotiate their education, their marriage. Because I remember talking to one of these girls and they said that, you know, how it's only once or twice that a girl gets a chance to complete that education. If she doesn't, if she's not able to complete it in that time period, then obviously the next discussion that happens at home is her marriage. So this whole aspect of completing her education and also going for employment is so important for girls because that's also their ability to be able to negotiate their marriageable age and do something that is of their own choice. So that's why this is such an important aspect. I'll stop and pause here, and we have a very, very short film that we want to show you about these women and girls. It's subtitles.
मैंने अभी बिग बास्केट में डिलीवरी का जॉब कर रही हूँ और मुझे इस काम से बहुत खुशी मिलती है।
मैं भी पैरामेडिकल में डायलिसिस टेक्नीशियन का कोर्स SMS मेडिकल कॉलेज से कर रही हूँ। मेरे पापा महिलाओं की चप्पल बनाने का काम करते हैं।
मैं अभी बिग बास्केट में डिलीवरी पार्टनर हूँ। पहले मैं बहुत डरती थी, यानी कि घर से बाहर तक नहीं निकलती, अपनी जरूरत की चीज़ें नहीं लेकर आती थी।
मैंने आज़ाद में जैसे मैप चलाना सीखा उससे और इंग्लिश क्लासेस लिए, उससे मुझे बहुत हेल्प मिलती है और मैप में जो भी लोकेशन देते हैं मैं चली जाती हूँ और ऑर्डर डिलीवर करके ही आती हूँ।
वहाँ पे मैंने काफ़ी कुछ सीखा है अभी तक। तो डायलिसिस कर दी भी हूँ मैं। हाँ, जब मैंने एडमिशन लिया था तो उसमें वो 10,000 तो मेरी काउंसलिंग की फ़ीस ही थी और उसके बाद में 30,000 एडमिशन फ़ीस थी, तो काफ़ी प्रॉब्लम हो रही थी हमें।
घर की तरफ से तो मुझे कोई चुनौती नहीं आई, बाकी आस पड़ोस के जो बोलते हैं कि रात सुबह जाती है 5-5, 6-6 बजे, आजकल का ज़माना अच्छा नहीं है, ऐसा वैसा सब बोलते थे। आज़ाद में आने के बाद अब मैं अपने फैसले भी खुद ले सकती हूँ, ना मैं डरती हूँ किसी से।
तो फिर आज़ाद फाउंडेशन को हमने बताया ये सब कुछ, तो उन्होंने मुझे स्कॉलरशिप प्रोवाइड की थी।
आज़ाद से पहले तो मैंने बहुत डरी सी रहती थी, लेकिन अब तो मैं अपने पैरों पर खड़ी हूँ और जॉब करती हूँ और मैं कुछ भी ले भी सकती हूँ और दिला भी सकती हूँ।
मैंने मोहल्ले में 15-20 लड़कियों का ग्रुप बना रखा है। उसमें जो कुछ भी मैं आज़ाद फाउंडेशन से मैंने सीखा है वो मैं उनको बताती हूँ।
पहले तो मैंने घर का एक फ्रिज खरीदा था और मिक्सी भी खरीदा मैंने और एक गाड़ी खरीदा है, स्कूटी।
मैं इसी में ही डिग्री कोर्स के लिए अप्लाई करूँगी आगे। डिग्री फिर मेरे पास जो डिग्री हो जाएगी तो फिर मेरी सैलरी भी काफ़ी ज़्यादा हो जाएगी, तो फिर मैं उसके मम्मी पापा की भी हेल्प और लोगों की भी मैं हेल्प करना चाहूँगी।
मैं आगे अपने बच्चों के लिए मतलब अच्छे कोर्सेज कराऊंगी और आगे मैं और अच्छे से पढ़ाऊंगी उसको और एक छोटा सा मकान जरूर खरीदूंगी।
So thank you for watching that. And with that, I think this is the message that we really wanted to deliver today here, that about transformative education and skill training. And I would now like to invite Siddhi Pathak, who is also our colleague. And the fact that these policies also need to reflect on these aspects and how transformative education can really be taken up at the policy level as well. So Siddhi is joining us online to give her thoughts on new education policy in India and the aspects connected to opportunities and challenges which are there in digital divide connected to it.
Hi, am I audible?
You're audible, Siddhi.
Yeah,
You can take on, yeah.
okay. So essentially, while we heard from my colleagues at the Azad Foundation about what the on-ground experience has been like in terms of, the need to provide non-traditional skills to women. This also has to be looked at in the broader context of the policy and what essentially hinders some of these programs or some of these initiatives that are taken by certain CSOs, and what parts of the policy actually support or encourage certain initiatives like this. So in India, if education in India is largely governed by the National Education Policy, which was revamped in 2020, and it was formulated with this whole vision of transforming India's education system, digitizing it, making it more flexible, integrating vocational education within the broader, so to speak, academic education system, with a large focus or a heavy focus on equity, inclusion, and holistic development of students. There are certain provisions within this which include digital and technology integration, encouraging self-learning or e-learning, skill training, things like that. However, there are certain complications also that arise with, sorry, just give me a minute. Yeah. There are certain complexities that also arise within the Indian context because of the certain unique socio-economic conditions or cultural conditions that are present in India. One is that there is rapid advancement in terms of government investments in digitization and artificial intelligence. It is also reported that the futuristic demand of skills will be heavily focused on AI and digital, like we've seen with trends in other countries as well. The reality, though, is that Indian women are 15% less likely to own a mobile phone and 33% less likely to use a mobile phone, to use mobile internet services than Indian men. So there's already a large divide that exists within the complicated Indian context. And therefore, it is then necessary for Indian policies to be able to address these complexities and then therefore make it gender transformative. So this study that we conducted was broadly to understand what was the scope of non-traditional livelihoods, or what was the scope of gender transformative education within the national education policy. And some of the findings that we had extracted for this particular presentation on the digital divide were that there are certain policy gaps through which have been identified through a gender lens within the policy document itself, and of course more gaps in the implementation side of it. And then that there are the insights drawn from the digital divide barriers also further accentuate the existing barriers in vocational education and access to technology. So this presents certain opportunities, but there are also certain limits to these opportunities. And then finally, we go on to the recommendations for policy improvement based on these systemic gaps that we have analyzed so far. So yeah, broadly, while the NEP or the National Education Policy recognizes gender as a key factor in the socio-economically disadvantaged group, there is no structured framework to make it gender transformative or to sort of focus on education pathways for women which are based on STEM or AI. Vocational training is implemented in a way that largely still remains gendered. So while vocational education is given a lot of importance in terms of making people more employable, women are still pushed towards traditional roles, which include caregiving or tailoring or sewing or things like that, while the more technical kind of roles are still being taken up by men. So plumbing or electrician or things like that are often being taken up by men. And this is what has been traditionally happening, and there is no push at the policy level to sort of break some of these barriers. So broadly, what we are trying to position through this study is that without a gender transformative shift, what happens at the policy level, specifically in the education policy, what happens is that the same inequalities which need to be dismantled can be further reinforced if there is no specific addressing of them at the policy level. And the same applies for digital and vocational skilling for women. So the NEP does not tackle any of the structural barriers, which I'll speak about in the next slide. There are provisions like a gender inclusion fund, but they only look at access. And we just heard from our speakers how access is not the only problem, but the key, the root causes of the lack of access also need to be tackled. And without such, gender sensitive digital training, the women further risk their exclusion from careers which are future ready or driven by technology and innovation. Certain barriers that exist in the vocational education system in India is that digitization there is a heavy focus in the national education policy on digitization of curriculum, everybody learning remotely on their remote devices, especially after COVID. But this digital access and literacy is not a core component under the vocational education part of NEP. Similarly, the structural barriers that I earlier spoke about, and that many speakers before me have also spoken about, which is lack of access to devices and the internet due to patriarchal norms, the fields of study being influenced by traditional gender roles. So somehow the aspirations are also, sort of influenced by what is my traditional gender role. So why women traditionally then want to get into nursing or caregiving, and how do we kind of break that? And gender biases in the curriculum and pedagogy are not at all addressed in there are modules on curriculum development under the national education policy, but none of them talk about how to break these gender biases. Similarly, STEM and AI-based career pathways for women are specifically not inculcated in the NEP 2020, which makes it difficult for women to enter future tech-driven. Can I request, yeah, thank you. So these were some of the key findings, and what we've done is kind of, based on certain frameworks, which is this is the empowerment continuum by Naila Kabir, where we speak about so I'm not trying to make it too academic, but just in terms of certain resources that we have are required to then have some agency, which then will come out as achievements or outcomes, which will help in the expansion of this agency or the expansion of the ability to make choices, which we call as opportunities. So here what we're trying to look at is what are these opportunities and limits to empowerment through the national education policy, and how really gender transformative are they in their approach. What we've found is that some of these opportunities exist at the policy level because gender sensitivity is mentioned under a broader theme. There is the mention of a gender inclusion fund. Women and transgenders are.
So sorry to interrupt you. Can I just request you to wrap up, because we also have to have a discussion after this, so which is why.
Sure, sure. So I'll broadly wrap up saying that I mean the broadly that the while the opportunities exist, there are broadly a lot of limitations. So there is this illusion of choice that persists due to the existing opportunities that are there. But because of the lack of strategies to address disequalizing norms, the structural barriers that we spoke about, we don't really know if these choices are previously denied or if they're really non-traditional. There are certain recommendations that we have towards bridging the digital divide at the policy level, which include partnerships with CSOs from the non-traditional livelihoods network, concentrated efforts in looking at the digital divide through a more holistic manner and not just at access, and to also decode products. I think a lot of people spoke about it, decode products which are more accessible to women and address the gender biases that are coded into these digital products. So, I mean, I'll broadly leave it at that because we're out of time. But yeah, that's it from my end. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddhi. I'll hand it over to Mikiko now.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Very informative. So I'd like to welcome, actually welcome, it's a co-organizer. So yes, we welcome together everybody, but His Excellency Mr. Fayaz Murshid Kazi, the Ambassador of Bangladesh here in Bangkok.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Ms. Tanaka for accommodating us. Digital inclusion and empowerment, I mean, this has always been a critical issue in our national context, but also as part of our diplomatic pursuits. We actively participated in the negotiations on the UN Digital Compact, and in that connection, we also organized a BIMSTEC level consultation to see if we could approach these negotiations through a uniform position. There has been a lot that has been said, so I would try not to repeat most of the things. Maybe just 5 issues that I thought could merit some reiteration. First of all, as we have heard, that the gender divide, gender digital divide is very much there. It's a reality. And I think the element that we need to factor in is also the urban-rural divide that we see in terms of the gender digital divide that we have. So in order to address that, of course, one solution is to further invest in digital public infrastructures. And in that context, I think the Indian government, as the G20 president, had taken some initiative to establish a dedicated fund to support developing and least developed countries in investing in digital public infrastructures. So those kind of work needs to be further accelerated. But in our case, we have seen that we have like more than 5,000 union level, really grassroots level digital centers where we had stipulated this provision that these would have shared ownership between a man and a woman. But has that effectively address the gender divide that we see? Not necessarily. And I think that's where the individual dimension also comes in. As everybody has been talking about, the internet access and affordability for women in particular, that is absolutely critical. And in the UN Digital Compact, in the original draft, there was an interesting proposal to reduce internet cost by 2% below the average income of 40% of the population. Which was difficult to sell. I mean, when it was proposed, we knew that probably it would not fly in course of the negotiation process. But these are kind of ideas we need to keep on the table to see how we can enhance access and affordability for women in particular to internet and related devices. Second aspect, I think our last speaker tried to address that, but I mean, the importance of disaggregated data. I mean, policymaking can only get supported if we do have data across age, gender, literacy, education, income, occupation, marital status, family size, all these factors, and couldn't agree more that we also need to look at the multi-generational equity and solidarity aspect of it, maybe including through mentorships and other tailored programs. With regard to transformative education, again, in our experience, we have seen that the online classrooms, the multimedia classrooms, I mean, there have been these investments in this, but that has not necessarily always addressed the gaps that we have seen within the genders or across class divides and other issues. In this context, I would think that since we are also talking about vocational education, one aspect that needs to be looked into is how we continue to upgrade the vocational education curricula, digital or digital-based vocational education curricula, and simultaneously continue to rescale and retrain teachers. Because in South Asian context, at least, that remains a chronic problem, that when teachers are recruited, perhaps they come in with certain skill sets, but those skills are not necessarily always upgraded or recalibrated in response to the evolutions that we see in technologies. So this is one aspect probably that needs some further attention from across the board. The third element I would like to talk about is digital entrepreneurship. I mean, of course, a lot has been said about that. Again, in Bangladesh, and I think in India and other cases, I mean, we have these cases of freelancers, which is a very good example. I mean, we have stories, anecdotes about female freelancers who are operating from very remote parts of the country. How uplifting those stories are, that they have kind of made their pitch online, and maybe someone sitting in North America or Europe kind of gave them a little work on web design or graphic design, and they made the first earning of $45 or $50, and how it kind of changed their lives, because it's also difficult to sustain in that kind of freelancing profession. I mean, you can start it, but to remain kind of committed to it, that can often be can be a challenge. And one of the things that we continue to hear, not just from females, but also from males, is the lack of accessibility to international payment gateways. And this is again where maybe your office can support us, how to make our international payment gateway systems more interoperable so that our freelancers, our digital workers who are working in these sectors, they can try to provide services across national borders in a more seamless manner. The fourth issue, I think, that has been also alluded to, I mean, secure digital space. I mean, it's one thing to encourage women to participate in greater numbers in the digital sphere, but if we do not manage to uphold their human rights, if we do not manage to protect privacy issues and so forth, then those would continue to remain a disincentives. In our case, in Bangladesh, I don't think, I mean, Thai or Maldives societies would be able to relate to it. But in our context, we have often heard our women in the informal sector saying that their husbands actually do not want them to use internet because they think that the wives or the partners would be exposed to unsavory elements or would get distracted and so forth. So the decision-making agency remains in the hands of the male members of the families, and how to enhance that agency. And that's where probably the issue of digital literacy, I mean, investing in that does come in a big way. And lastly, of course, customized multilingual gender-sensitive contents. I mean, again, if women do not see relevance in the digital sphere in terms of contents that actually talk to them, that cater to them, again, we would continue to have certain structural challenges in relation to that. Again, in South Asian context, in terms of technology adoption, the rates are pretty high. I don't think that we are laggards in terms of adopting technologies, but if we can make them accessible and affordable, obviously, I mean, women, even in the informal sector, would certainly come forward. Our government 2 years ago, I mean, this is how I would conclude, I mean, had launched an initiative called Zero Digital Divide. It was launched in the context of the high-level political forum on sustainable development. We are not sure how far this work would advance, but this is probably one food for thought that I would like to leave here. One of the core ideas of that campaign was to develop a comprehensive, we say it E-quality or equality index to assess disparities in the digital sector. It's easier said than done, but if this work could be taken forward so that we could have an objective assessment about what kind of disparities and discriminations exist in the realm of digital divide, then that could actually be a great support for policy making. And the very last point, since we are talking in the Asia-Pacific context, of course, we do not always need to reinvent things. I mean, there are many good practices, digital solutions that are available in our multiple contexts. And from that perspective, I mean, we would remain very much committed to promoting further South-South and triangular cooperation to facilitate the exchange of such digital solutions that can be applicable in our respective contexts. Sorry, I took a bit of time, but thank you very much.
Oops, thank you very much, Ambassador. Very, very informative. I think we had a lot of food for thought here. So we have like, I don't know, what, 10? No, 8 minutes or something? 10 minutes left. I don't know. So I'd like to open the floor if there are any questions or any, points, contributions people would like to make succinctly. We can take 2 or 3, depending on, yes, please. Please introduce yourself too.
Thank you very much for a very insightful presentation. And my name is Prim from the Youth Forum, and I'm also a woman in AI and women in STEM. So it's really interesting to hear how different initiatives here. I also would like to ask about how could we also promote women in terms of like financing and also about changing the gender norms of women's roles, as some of the speakers has been said about there are some norms of what expectation or roles or work that women have, because I think we have more women in education, but this does not really be transformed into the work job. It could be like the glass ceiling problem. And also one of the comments of how digitalizations could actually empower more women if they are they're doing unpaid care work at home, but they can also using this e-commerce and they can also sell products and also open towards spaces that can empower them and then can be having more financial independence. So how could we support us and how can young people also engage in those spaces? Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. So Dr. Mendes in the back.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Tanaka. It's very, very inspiring, very illuminating speeches made by the panelists. Let me just make for the
Introduce yourself.
sake of clarity and lucidity, I'll just make about,
Introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are.
yeah, sure. Saj Mendes, BIMSTEC Secretariat. I'll just make about 3 or 4 comments and then I'll pose questions to the panelists. Very brief points. When you talk about digitalization now, in 1950s, 1960s, it was basically democratization, and then it changed to globalization, then changed to liberalization, and then changed to regionalization. That's in late 1990s. And then in the beginning of 2000, it was technologization. Technologization when large Google and Apple and those companies came up. And now today it has become digitalization. Now my second point is, now this is extremely seminal to the global economy and for social advancement, as the ambassador of Bangladesh stated. This can bridge the gender divide and even bridge amongst developed and LDCs, least developed countries. And let me also state that BIMSTEC, as Ambassador of Bangladesh stated, is very, very keen on digitalization. And recently, just about 3 weeks ago exactly, in Sri Lanka, had a BIMSTEC digital conclave, and that was very well received. Let me just state that when people talk about digitalization, many of them just don't know how to. Many of them, even governments, just don't know how to implement and execute it. Just like, many of you might be knowing George Westerman at MIT, one of the pioneers of digitalization, and he was the one who stated, if digital transformation is done right, it's just like a caterpillar transforming or transmogrifying to a butterfly. If it's done wrong, you only get a very fast caterpillar, still a caterpillar. So that said, let me just pose the questions. Now SDG 5 and 4, and of course when Ms. Tanaka invited me when I'm based in Dhaka for the last 4 months. Before that I was in Vietnam, I was ambassador there. And when she invited, I had no hesitation. I thought even I had the most important appointment, I'll attend this because I see the importance and significance of this particular forum. And how would SDG 5 be executed in order to materialize and attain to bridge the digital divide, gender digital divide? Number 2, of course, the ambassador of Bangladesh is here. Do world leaders or global leaders, I said in my presentation speech also. And policymakers know about SDGs because we discuss SDGs in SCAP and in these rooms, but does it get conveyed to the policymakers and government thinkers? Because I know for a fact, I don't want to mention any governments, I know some of the very senior ministers who are in charge of this particular subject matter. When you ask SDGs, not 5 or 17 or 14 or any other SDGs, they just don't know what stands for SDGs. And number three, in the electronic and print media, you see quite often economies and market cap of companies and defense spendings and all those things, but you rarely see about SDGs. It's not given much publicity. And lastly but not the least, it is quite alarming, the 500 Fortune corporates in the world, that's mostly in the US and in China, and of course, in India and other countries. Until recently, there were more Johns and James as CEOs than females. And the first female CEO was appointed in 1972 by Washington Post. So you can just see, even though the last over 5 decades, we have not moved fast enough. And lastly but not the least, today with the mobile phones, I used to tell Sri Lankan ambassadors in front of me, Vijayanti, I used to tell that, you have the mobile phones today on the palm of your hand, you have the entire Library of Congress. How many people use it? But I see that 2 decades ago or 3 decades ago, when I was in Geneva, my first posting, people are more informed than today, despite the fact you have enough information because they just use it for YouTube, WhatsApp, and just watching movies and Hindi movies and not to extract knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have a long list of questions and points. I'm not going to ask anybody to respond to anything. I think you pick up what you think you can respond to. I just want to go around here. So Dr. Saipet, because I know you have to, move. If you'd like to start, anything you'd like to, share.
Well, as a businesswoman and as I work with the Federation of Business and Professional Women since I was a very young member. I'm a young member. I started my own business when I was 24, and I joined the FBPW when I was 27. And being a woman in business, I don't see that I'm under, or I work equal men and women. I don't feel inferior. And also with men, with male or female, because I think that we are as human. I don't have any inferiority. I don't have to think that I lose opportunity because I'm women. And especially here in Thailand, I think it's a land of a lot of freedom for women. And you can see that we have a lot of women entrepreneurs, startups, but it is, you have to set your mind and have your mindset, what is your goal, what you like to achieve in your life. I think I'm a person who is very clear in the target and goals, where I want to go, where I want to be, and I try all the way through. But most important thing is training and education. I never stop, apply for the courses. I never stop applying for all the trainings, which is updates. And I think that is very important, not only by experiences you have in business practices, but you have to get a right theories. I think that, and listen to all the knowledgeable people, and you have samples already through your practices, but with theory, then you will make yourself more confident in deciding or whatever you like to set your goals and achieving it. And this is what I practice all my life. And whatever you like to do with this digital transformation, you can do it right now. You can even do it by yourself. I give you a very quick example. During the COVID time, we have to stop the whole business, retailers, in 2 years. Within 2 years, we still have to pay full salary to all of our staff for 2 years. But what I do, I could not go to the office, I could not go to the shop. I stop at home and I start my sausage business because I love to eat sausages. And then I try from home. For the third month that I try, I tell you that I reached $1 million baht business online. And that is just to try. I said, whatever you like to do, because I like to challenge myself through this whole the small mobile machine. I like to know people is talking to my ears every day. Oh, I make millions. I make a lot of business out of these mobile phones. And I like to prove it myself. So I try, but I tell you, it starts, everything you start, it's not easy, because I have even to ask my daughter, I remember, how to write the caption online. It's different languages. She said, Mommy, if you write like that, nobody will buy your sausage. Mommy, if you write like that, nobody gonna read. And sometimes when I read the comment, I was shocked, because the comment of the new generation is so strong. And then another logistic, that I have to face. I have to call all the Grab, because I cannot send the goods myself. I have the convoys of all the motorcycles in front of my house, about 70 or 100 motorbikes in front of my soil, and the neighbors ask me what is happening to this house, because I have all the motorbikes waiting to deliver, my products. And that is a small sample that I would like to give. I mean, I think that this digital era or transformation, it changed the world really rapidly. I not only would like to encourage the young ones or the young members, young entrepreneurs, but I think that how to help also the golden age, the people who are going to this golden age, and try to make them or extend or expand the ages of making economic empower to the country longer. I don't think that the retirement should be 60 or 65. You could go on a lifetime. You could go on with 80. I mean, you never use Zoom, but during the COVID time, everybody, I even can have the regional conference through Zoom. I never make it. I never make money from mobile phones, and I did try and made it. So I think it's time to go together with leaving nobody behind. But if it is going this pace, I think many people will be left behind because of the digital eruption. Thank you.
Thank you. Very inspirational role model. Thank you very much. I'm going to go online to Shakila and then CDG, maybe briefly. We're kind of, after 6 o'clock now. So, Mariam, Shakila.
Yes. I mean, I've listened to very inspiring stories and all that, but then what we also must realize is, having access to a device is not sufficient for empowering girls. They need comprehensive education on how to use technology effectively. And with the rapid pace of technological change, as so many of our panelists have mentioned, it is crucial to provide training that not only covers basic usage, but also encompasses digital literacy, critical thinking, and also problem-solving skills. And education should also include hands-on experience with various tools and applications, as well as an understanding of online safety and digital citizenship. So by equipping girls with the knowledge and skills necessary to navigate the digital landscape, I'm sure we will be able to enable them to take full advantage of the opportunity technology offers, allowing for greater participation in the digital economy, empowering women to innovate and lead in the future. Now, also creating an inclusive content that resonates with women and addresses their specific needs is also very important. That will increase their engagement with technology. And community involvement is also key, as grassroots movements can identify and then tackle unique barriers that these people are facing. So public-private partnerships can also amplify efforts, pooling resources and expertise to create impactful programs. Now, today here in Indonesia, what I came up.
Okay. She's listening to the announcement. CDG, can I ask you briefly, maybe last thoughts, maybe answers?
Yeah, I'll just try to respond to some of the previous questions that were asked and also sum it up for myself. I think a lot of us have spoken about the need for vocational education that is upgraded, that is in line with the requirements of digitization, and is transformative in nature, not just responsive to the needs of women, but transformative for women in the sense that it really empowers them to challenge certain structural barriers and gender norms that have been inhibiting them from participating or making choices that perhaps were previously denied for women. So in order for us to reach that as an outcome, whether it is in digitization or broadly for women, it would be necessary to recognize and redistribute some of the unpaid labor that women are performing, not just at the policy level, but also at the grassroots level. And that kind of push to recognize what these inequalities have been has to come from implementing these programs and partnering with CSOs. I think partnerships, PPPs have also been spoken about, Mariam, before. But the idea is that these partnerships, while PPPs are in the government implementation sector, also something that has become increasingly popular and important. What needs to happen is a very structured public-private partnership where you partner with organizations that have been working in this space of gender-specific issues, have been working towards non-traditional livelihoods, towards gender transformative education, towards maintaining disaggregated data. These kind of partnerships need to be forged and leveraged at the end of the day, which will then therefore push towards recognizing inequalities and therefore towards structural changes at the structural and systemic level and not just otherwise. So yeah, that's all.
Great, thank you very much. Can I go to the Azad Foundation?
Yeah, thank you. I think great comments, and I also specifically wanted to address the one which was asked about how young people can really contribute. So, coming again from our own experience, I would say that when we work with adolescent girls, also we have seen that they themselves form peer groups, and how that also helps in many ways. Like whatever they are learning is also getting translated on ground, and how that also leads to the transformation of not just one individual, but also of the community itself. And the same goes for marginalized women when they get employed, and how that leads to agency not of just one woman, but also it's sort of it's got a ripple effect into the community. So I guess it's also to do with the starting point and how we redefine some of these ways in which we are looking at what education really means, and decode when we talk about digital divide as well, like currently we've been doing, decoding that as to what is it really that it means to have firstly access, and what does it mean to even when we're talking about what division is that we are talking. And as somebody rightly pointed out, it could be different for urban, for rural, and therefore looking at everything in a holistic way and not looking at everyone as a homogeneous entity when it comes to even women. So I'll just pause here. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been great to hear everybody.
Thank you, Kuntanahap.
Okay, I just want to respond to the young lady's youth question. How would you help support empowering women or women digital entrepreneurs? I just want to give you an example. In Thailand, there is a program called Digital Volunteers. The program is run by the Ministry of Digital Economy, where digital volunteers are recruited in the provincial areas from local academic institution, local universities, or even high school. These youth are basically digitally savvy. They know how to do it. And basically they become volunteers, and they don't get paid, but they get expenses reimbursement for SIM cards, for traveling, for food. And that's run by the government. And what they do is they would go down to the village level and help train women, especially women who are engaging in local businesses, textile, handicrafts, food making, things like that, to sell online. Basically, Facebook Live, TikTok, and things. That's where it starts. To get these women to be more interested and able to do business online. So that's just a small example. Look up digital volunteers in Thailand, and hopefully you'll find something there. Last comment, I think women, digital entrepreneurs, if you would promote them or you would empower them, it's a whole of country. It's not just one player. It starts from the policymakers down to the practitioners, the private sectors, the CSOs, and people such as yourselves in the room. It needs a concerted effort. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador.
I have spoken a lot already. I mean, in the interest of time, Ambassador, I can't address all of your issues, but I think, I mean, you're right that digitization should help accelerate SDG 5, absolutely. And my take would be that the way climate change, for example, is looked at as a cross-cutting issue across the entire 2030 agenda for sustainable development, digital transformation should also be treated or looked at as a cross-cutting issue across all the 17 goals that we have. And if that way we can factor in the reality of digital transformation, that would not just have a multiplier effect on SDG 5, but also all the other related SDG targets that we are looking at. I'm a bit worried when you said that there is still some dearth of appreciation or understanding about SDGs. The context that I know the best, I mean, in Bangladesh, SDGs had been very effectively mainstreamed into our national development strategies. It's kind of our policy staple. But in contexts where perhaps there are still some lags or deficits, that's where probably people like all of you come in, the civil society actors and other stakeholders, to raise awareness at the policy level about the seminal importance of SDGs. This is a universal, ambitious blueprint for global development that the world had adopted, and we cannot condone in any way any kind of ignorance or deficits about that. About young people, I would just like to say that in the 80s and 90s, when we were growing up, the DOS computers came on the scene, and eventually, I mean, that evolved into many other sophisticated versions of computers. And we cannot claim ourselves to have become experts in those technologies, but we kind of try to move or float with the flow. So there is a lot of fear-mongering that's happening with artificial intelligence and all these emerging technologies. My only suggestion would be, from our hindsight, that let's not get scared about it. I mean, let's just try to adopt them as much as possible and try to disseminate and diffuse them as much as possible. It's very unfortunate that when we are trying to unpack the issue of digital divide, we are still talking about making 3G or 4G accessible to large segments of our population, let alone artificial intelligence and all these other new technologies. So we have to keep those people in mind, but at the same time, people who are perhaps in a more advantageous, more privileged situation like yourself, you need to kind of remain open to the challenges and the opportunities that are beckoning you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I guess I have the last word of thanking everybody, but I thought I'd just share. 25 years ago, I was working for human resources in one of the UN agencies in New York, and a few of the UN agencies in New York were discussing how to increase women leaders in the UN, because at the time, very few, right? Many women were at the assistance level, general staff level, support staff. So a lot of analysis and thinking was done, and one thing that came up was, okay, the policies of hiring, that really needs to be more affirmative. So that really was done. And then, other human resource policies that would enable women to continue working with families that went into paternity leaves, et cetera. So there were some policy actions that were done, trainings as well, both for men and women. But one thing that did come up was, okay, how do men, successful men, how do they go into leadership? And they were talking about 25 years ago, which I don't think has changed much, is the old boys network. There's somebody who looks after you, and it's probably from the same university, a graduate of the same university, or you join the same, group or year or alumni, whatever it is. There's somebody who looks after you and kind of handholds you as you go. In this situation, you do this or that, don't do this or that. Women didn't have that because you didn't have many leaders, right? So part of the mentoring that, many people talked about was how to really deliberately create mentors in an environment where there were not many women leaders. You need more examples because, it's not for women to copy male leaders. It's not, and male leaders, you have all kinds, but nonetheless, there may be another style of leadership that will be, kind of women or, it needs to be diverse. And again, that mentoring programs that some agencies we work together on was to really train the mentality of mentors, but really create, people who know how to navigate the system, have networks, to actually be mentors for the women who are recruited in as potential leaders. Well, today, at least at the, the top levels of the UN system, I think we've achieved a certain parity. This is 20 years, right? So, but I think that combination of the policy, but really that, people like you, I think, listening to you is inspiring and really, gives the confidence that maybe I can do it as well, So I think that's also very, very important. And in addition to digital volunteers, I think digital leaders in the women as well. I mean, the digital space is just so changing. It's new. Everybody's learning, men and women, every generation. So you can create it in a way, if there are more women in that to create it, to make it more friendly to women as well. So that's my last word. I'd really like to thank you all, both online and here in the room, all the panelists, and also the co-organizers. Really, it was very energizing, a lot of information, a lot of, food for thought, for action to follow up. I hope we can work together to do follow up on some of this action. Thank you very much all.